Hello and welcome to Horror Boys. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by
Chris,
Isaiah,
and we are the Horror Boys. And this isn't just any podcast on the internet. This is specifically a horror movie review podcast where every week we review a new horror movie. Well, not a new horror movie. We review a horror movie that is new to the podcast.
new to us.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I've seen them, but
tune in 10 years from now when we're reviewing movies that we've already reviewed.
I mean, I peek behind the curtain. There are a few movies I do want to give like another shot at. Like,
dang, really?
I think that the podcast has changed enough since we did, especially the first Friday the 13th. I think it deserves the modern treatment. And we've only been doing this 8 months, so who knows in 3 years if it'll be even more so definitely needing a new treatment.
A second wash.
But, you know, that podcast was less than an hour, and half of it was just talking about our experiences with horror. So I definitely don't think that movie got the same amount of respect, I guess, as some of these other movies have. Movies that probably don't deserve it. Speaking of movies that probably don't deserve respect, we are continuing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise today with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation.
That's right. It's not Star Trek. It's still Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes. Yeah. To be fair, the original title wasn't that. When the movie was initially shot, it was called The Return of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which might be just as bad.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but
yeah.
Neither does The Next Generation, because it's like, what next generation? The family? The teenagers who all die?
What we're seeing, the new Leatherface is actually the daughter of the previous Leatherface. As the movie clearly established.
I mean, we will get to that in the opening crawl, but first we have a couple information to get before to that. But I definitely will say, no, it's not, because this movie doesn't care about anything that came before it, except for maybe the first one loosely.
Like the last movie and the one before that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, to be fair
to 2, what the movie does in the title crawl.
To be fair to 2, it did respect every movie that came before it. Really, you can't fault them.
Only one movie that came before it.
You can't fault 2 for not, it followed the continuity and said, hey, here's another one.
Yeah. It is in sequence to the one before. I'll give it that. There are a lot of changes, but it is at least possible. Yeah.
That's fair.
We'll get into it. But
and this movie is written and directed by Kim Henkel, who wrote the first one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But then when he writes and directed, he made this.
Fascinating.
I wrote down this person's name because I think I got to look up there while I go through this other fact. I'm going to mention the director of photography up here just because I don't remember why I thought to write them down. But I think I wrote them down because they've done like a bunch of other stuff where I was like, wait, what? Kind of a situation. Let me see. Cinematographer is Levi Isaacs, who was the director of photography of Leprechaun, as well as like the first 6 seasons of Malcolm in the Middle, which is why I wrote his name down, because I'm a huge Malcolm in the Middle fan, and I thought it was insane that this man directed like 6 seasons. Well, director was the cinematographer, not director. He wasn't the director, but he was the cinematographer of 6 seasons of Malcolm in the Middle, which is not at all this.
Not
it's
in the slightest.
Like doing Leprechaun, okay, you're doing some, crappy 90s horror movies. Got it, okay, I understand where you're at. But then he went, what if I just do 6 seasons of a sitcom instead? And you know what? I like his work on that, I guess. I don't remember any of the cinematography on that show, but
the range is impressive.
And I have this other fact that I could bring up once, like, these actors come into the story, so it makes a little more sense, but I just want to get it out to start. This movie was shot in 1994. It was not released until 96 because it was shelved after like a small release that did terrible. But then Renee Zellweger, who is in this movie, was in Jerry Maguire, and that movie kind of made her a big star. So they went, I don't know, let's put this movie out again now. Let's put it out now. It'll work now. We'll sell it off of her and Matthew McConaughey, who had also gotten famous since this movie. He technically, like, one of his first breakout roles was Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which was before this. Was it Fast Times? No, it wasn't. It was Dazed and Confused. My bad. Wrong.
There you go.
80s comedy that have very similar vibes. Wrong one.
Wrong 80s stoner comedy.
Yeah. No, this is he was in Dazed and Confused, and yeah, he famously, says all right in that, and, his career went off.
This one.
Yeah, he also does that in this one. But Matthew
you told me that because I was actually afraid that catchphrase began here.
No. That movie was shot at least like a year before this one.
Okay, all right.
He had done it before this one. But his legal team tried to sue them for putting this out because they said it was like basically... I'm trying to remember the exact wording I heard, but it was basically the idea was that it was just an upfront to decency to put this movie out now. You were trying to just capitalize on who he is. Like, you were trying to tarnish his career basically by putting this out now. And yeah, I just want to get that out at the beginning. I could have definitely brought it up once, like maybe the first scene with them in it, because it involves both Renee and McConaughey. But yeah, this movie,
Jackson.
Yeah, it was initially shot in '94 as Return to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as we mentioned, but got shelved because it wasn't good. But also, it was also like then cut a lot, so I don't even know what I don't know if there is like a cut that has differences. I don't know, but I do know it was edited like crazy when they re-put it out. So maybe there was a slightly better movie that critics hated in '94. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, then the movie actually opens, though. We open with some narration. I would say like a crawl, but it's not a crawl. It's literally a paragraph in the middle of the screen. Like every other movie so far has had at least like 2 or 3 paragraphs, and it kind of slowly crawls a little bit. This movie said, here's a paragraph. And also, hey, you remember what happened in the first movie? Cool. Also, the second and third movie happened, we guess.
Yeah, the title crawl is just like that. We're apparently related to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre murders.
And it's like, come on. Like, this is the movie that's going to take the stand that everything before this isn't canon. This one is like, and those...
This is the definitive Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, this movie that adds in Illuminati says, are you telling me you think Nomland is canon? Yeah, right. I don't know. I just thought it's weird that they felt the need to say that, like, you could have just not acknowledged them, like the third movie did. The third movie didn't acknowledge the second one in the crawl. But this one said, yeah, they happened. I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this. They could have just engineered it as a remake or introduced it as a remake that we've seen previously.
Yeah.
And instead, it's like, yeah, you put it better than I could.
I think part of it, if I was trying to break down the reasoning, is probably this is the first movie since the first one that Kim Henkel is involved with again.
Right.
So I guess he's saying, those weren't what I would do if I wrote a Texas Chainsaw sequel. I would involve the Illuminati.
The Illuminati.
Yeah.
Which, we'll get to the craziness that is that part of this plot when we get to it, but I will just say I think it's a little funny that this is the movie that takes such a hard stand on the previous ones. It's like...
Honestly, it feels like such a hard stand right out the gate, and the way that they word it, it all just feels so self-parodying. It realizes how silly the past two were, and trying to connect it to the first one, and it's just yeah, who cares at this point?
I see what you mean.
I want to believe what you're saying is true, but
I would love to believe it. I don't know if it's true.
I feel
but
like
it feels like everything is so on the nose, and this movie in itself is so like ridiculous and out of left field that there could be no way that the man who made the first movie took a look at this and said, yes, this is a serious film that I intend my audience to also take seriously.
I hope you're right. I'm not on board with the theory, but I want to be. I want that to be the answer.
Austin wants to believe.
I want to have that much faith in humanity, but I think Kim Henkel just made an awful movie that he thinks is good.
That's also possible.
I watched the documentary, and he was treating it like this was a good movie. The way, honestly, everyone was talking about this movie. They were treating it like, yeah, we made a good movie. We're proud of what we made. And I'm like, I enjoyed parts of this movie, but I'm not going to say I thought it was a good movie.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But
this movie was a lot of things, but it was not a good movie.
Yeah.
No, not in any respect.
All right, and there's the end of the podcast. Anyways, we'll see you next week.
Getting past the title crawl.
Yeah.
After that, we get an opening date, which has been changed. The initial cut said 94 to keep it with where it was being filmed, but our new date is May 22nd, 1996. Then we head to some really boring credits, like the worst credits we've had so far in the series. The first one was really cool because it was so fresh and weird, and then the second one was okay, and the third one had the really hilariously bad intro into him, so at least it had something going for it. This one's just boring. It's just there.
It sure is.
Yeah. And then we come back from the credits on a real close-up shot of Jenny's lips. Jenny, who is played by Renee Zellweger. Yeah, so she's putting on lipstick. And yeah, she's getting ready for prom. Apparently, I will say, once again, I learned this from the documentary, and it kind of actually makes sense with one of some of the lines in this first little scene. There's a moment where you see her mouth not match up at all with what she says as she yells for her mom. It's like mom, as a question, and her mouth doesn't move. It's because that's actually the last soundbite from the actual scene, which is her being about to be abused by her stepdad, which is hinted, another character mentions that later, but that apparently was supposed to be more important to the story. To kind of immediately establish her as a victim, I guess.
It's pretty marginal.
Yeah. I only reason I even brought it up here was because I remember thinking, wow, that's really weird that her mouth doesn't move at all when she says mom at the end of this scene. She's just sitting there, and her mouth, you hear it, and you're like, she didn't say that at all.
Well, one thing I would want to, ask you all, just cards on the table. I was wondering in hindsight about the relevance or importance of this scene. Because one thing that's been a staple of these so far is that the main character introduced to, Austin pointed out last time, goes through some significant development that contrasts with the way we see them at first. Usually with they're naive at first and then they're experienced and gritty and tough, like with the last one. But the lipstick doesn't seem at all relevant to me. I was wondering if y'all just had any thoughts on.
I would say
it's bearing on the movie.
I would say there's a pretty direct relevance. Well, mainly because there's audio playing in the background of her mother being abused by the stepfather.
Yeah.
While she's putting on the lipstick,
wipes off the lipstick to become the ugly girl, and with the glasses, and by the end of the movie, I think we're getting the classic 90s makeover throughout a horror movie, basically, of her hair tied up with glasses towards the end where she doesn't have it, and she's come up, she has confidence. I'm not saying it was done well, but I think that was the intention of the scene, was to show hey, she wants to be the pretty girl who'd wear a lipstick, but hot Renee Zellweger doesn't have the confidence to wear a lipstick. And you're all right, sure, Renee Zellweger isn't attractive. Got it, movie. It's I'm not saying Renee Zellweger is the hottest actress ever, but it's one of those classic the movie nerd who's ugly and we make fun of her for it, but she's Renee Zellweger, and it's are you sure about that, movie?
But also, I think it kind of adds to that theme that Isaiah's been, hinting at with all the past movies of like the male versus the female.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, okay.
and I feel like this movie is kind of the most heavy-handed about it, especially like with Jenny versus Vilmer throughout this entire movie. But yeah, we'll get to that more later.
But yeah, I think, like, here's the thing. I'm not going to say that I think the scene was important, but I can see the importance they were trying to put on it, if that makes sense. Like, I agree it didn't do a good job of feeling important, but yeah, she put on her outfit, she wipes off her makeup, and she goes downstairs for some prom photos with her really tall boyfriend, who's not her boyfriend, we find out later.
Not her boyfriend, just her friend that does
Just
pot.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. What an accusation.
Sorry. It just, typically when you go to prom with someone, you're typically in a relationship with them. Typically, not always.
Typically.
I would say typically. But
no, later the character he spits it at him. He's like, everyone knows you're just friends.
yeah.
Like, oh well.
But also that guy
The
says
secret
a
is
lot
out.
Yeah, that guy also says a lot of weird things that we'll definitely get to some of them because I wrote some of them down.
My dad's a doctor. My dad's a lawyer.
He's got a high achieving dad,
His dad is both. Or what the movie didn't tell you is actually this movie is actually very progressive and he has two dads. One is a lawyer and one is a doctor. There is nothing about his character that he mentions having a mother. I'm just saying it is possible that he was never lying.
My dads love each other very much. That's why he's so homophobic.
Yeah. It's just
he's not
willing to accept, the life he has.
Yeah, apparently not. Anyway.
Well, yeah, but the reason also I specifically mentioned the prom photos, though, which I forgot, is it's our first moment of the iconic flashbulb sound effect. And it already feels cheaper by being in these, little, this, dollar store camera, taking these pictures. But it gets worse. This is the movie that jumps off the deep end of just saying, that's a sound effect that we can use now.
It was so poorly used, I thought it was a part of the soundtrack when they were taking the photos. Because it was, the level of the soundtrack was just, so perfectly even with the sound effect that they were using. I was just...
Yeah.
Is this the part of the song, or is this the flashbulb sound effect? What's going on?
Yeah, no, it's the flashbulb sound effect, and this is one of the only times it's actually used for at least a camera flash. But it is not the last time we use it in this movie. I write it down every time. Don't worry, I'm here for you guys. Now we head to prom, baby, where we get some pretty bad acting all around, baby.
Yeah.
We're introduced to a couple characters. The first one, we got meet Jenny's date, who is Sean. We also meet Heather. We also meet an unnamed, weird, eccentric girl in a red dress who, at first I was like, oh, she's definitely got to be a character because she is so weird that she has to be important. But she's in this one scene being weird and then never seen again. She is just someone at the prom. Then Heather goes to look for her boyfriend, Barry, or I guess at least her date to the prom. I guess, once again, they might not be in a committed relationship. At least that's Barry's.
Don't tell that to Heather.
Barry doesn't think they are, because Barry's kissing a different girl. And
that was not Heather's impression.
Yeah, and Heather is very upset by it, so she goes to leave. This scene, I have just said in about 30 seconds, actually goes on for about 3 minutes, this whole prom / her finding out he cheated scene. But it is so pointless. We will move on now. So she storms off and he goes to follow her. He gets in, I believe she was leaving in his dad's car, so I don't even know how she had the key. Because he does make multiple mentions like, you gotta be careful, you're gonna get in a crash and my dads are gonna kill me.
My dads are gonna kill me.
Yeah. But yeah, so he gets in the car with her though. And he also explains that he was only cheating because she's too possessive and doesn't let him hang out with his friends. Because that's a reason to kiss another girl.
Well, really, it is her fault,
Yeah.
you know, if you think about it.
And also in the car, he also tells her that, you know, it is also to prevent prostrate cancer.
Yeah, not prostate cancer, prostrate cancer. It's when you lay down on your belly, face down, and then you suddenly get cancer.
Yeah.
You contract it from the earth, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's a sound medical argument. You don't lay enough pipe in high school, then you're going to die of cancer and go bald.
It's facts.
I have to say, this is the most well-developed and, like, well-presented character in the movie, in my opinion. I think, like, aside from maybe Renee Zellweger's character, who obviously does a very good job.
Oh.
Um,
I mean,
relatively speaking. I mean, like, this guy, like, this is just, he's a great character. He's a terrible, terrible douche, and I'm convinced of it.
I mean,
like,
I guess that's
there's
fair.
no breaks.
I don't like this character, and that was the intention, but I do think that there were... I don't know if I'd say developed is good. He was a one-note, terrible dude the whole movie. Is that really development? Like, developed?
Well, yeah, maybe I should have said develop. I mean, no, he's one-dimensional. I just mean that, like, he is portrayed ably. You know, like, the acting really brings this character to life, I think, more so than any other character. Like, there's...
Acting is a loose term.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I will agree to disagree and move on. But,
I'm sorry.
no, it's fine. I don't know.
sticking with
Here's the thing.
that.
I like you having your opinion, and I don't hate your opinion. There's times where you shared opinions where I go, "What are you talking about?" This one, I go, "Yeah, no, I guess he was good at being a jerk," but also I think there's a couple other characters. Like specifically, I think I liked McConaughey's over-the-top crazy performance as Vilmer. Like I think that was.
Are you kidding me?
I liked Vilmer for what he
God.
is. I mean, he's not good. I mean, it's not good. Nothing in this movie is good, Isaiah.
I argue that one thing is, you know.
Okay, you know, we're gonna move along
Wild.
because I feel like I could, you know, argue about this for 20 minutes and it'll go nowhere because we both have our opinions and that's fine.
Sure, yeah.
And as he says the line about prostrate cancer, we also find out that Jenny and Sean are in the back seat. They kind of pop up, and you're like, "What? Whoa, they're here. Okay, were they like doing something in the back seat?" We find out in a couple scenes later in this like long car scene that no, they were probably just getting high. But apparently, they're also potheads, both of them.
That's the accusation.
I mean, I feel like Sean. The implication is he knows Sean, and Sean is.
Yeah.
And I guess
Sean is.
Jenny. I kind of want to call her Ginny, but no, it's Jenny. Jenny's just a follower who I guess likes Sean enough that she's willing to hang out in her other friend's dad's car to get high with him, rather than go to prom that she obviously cared about because she was thinking about wearing makeup for the first time. It's actually really sad that she's stuck in this car if you really think about it.
Well, it's her other friend's boyfriend's dad's car, actually.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think anyone...
I don't think anyone's friends with
Barry.
Barry, yeah.
And Sean is. They were. Sean used to be friends with him. He's a jerk now.
Used to be.
But also, I don't know why,
popular.
Jenny would be really friends with Heather either. But... But yeah, so we find out that they're in the back seat, and then they get into a small little car crash, just for funs. This one means nothing. It just kind of happens, and they keep driving. It makes Barry freak out because there might be a scratch on his dad's cars, his multiple dad's car. That is canon now because the movie did not tell me they're not, so they could be, and I think that's cool. I respect Kim Henkel for going there. Respect. Yeah, and as they drive off, I wrote that we get some hilariously bad dialogue scene where we find out that Barry sucks. I did love this scene, but not because I think it was done well. Like, this was a scene that was so bad that I couldn't stop laughing at some of the crap that just kept coming out of Barry's mouth. And just everyone in the car is all so bad at acting in this scene.
Yeah. In my personal opinion, all of the teenagers acting, except for Renee Zellweger, in like the mid to end part of the movie was terrible.
I mean, there was only 4 of them, and none of them were good. Even Renee
Yeah.
Zellweger was just there for the whole movie.
Dude, yeah, I want to say that Heather really drags him down, but in her somewhat defense, Sean doesn't say 2 words the entire time. Like he's a mannequin. So
Yeah.
maybe if he had been given lines, maybe he would have surpassed Heather in terribleness. I don't know.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the scene's bad, but I loved it. I will say, like, it's one of the scenes where it's bad, but I couldn't stop laughing because it was so weird and so bad.
Is
Wish
this
I
the
had
one
that
where
impulse.
Heather goes
I wish
off
I
about
did.
like talking about how they're gonna go get killed?
Yeah,
And
well, that's a
maybe
little bit.
they'd
That's
be
at the
on
end
a-
of this. That's at the end. That's the end of this. There's a
Okay.
couple. There's some other like funny lines before we get to that.
True crime girl.
This scene ends with. Oh no, you're right. Sorry, that's the next scene is where it gets funny again. This scene does end with her very upbeatly bringing up the idea of them crashing and all dying. She's like, "What if we all just died and they wrote a song about us?" And you're like, "What?
What? All right, Heather.
All right, Heather. Shut up, Heather."
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of liked Heather too. She's terrible, but I kind of liked her. I'm not gonna lie, I liked a lot of this bad that is this movie.
Fair.
I'm not gonna tell anyone I'm not gonna encourage anyone to go see this movie because I think it's art. But I had a fun time through most of it. The worst scene for me.
Likability.
Sorry.
I just said, yeah, I agree. Heather does have some likability, even if she does become like the Austin Powers assassin and her unkillableness
I'll give you
by
that.
the end of the movie.
But that's not really Heather's fault. That's definitely just the writing's fault at that point.
Dude.
You could there's things you can blame Heather for, like her line delivery maybe, but even all of her I think most of what makes Heather so stupidly funny is how badly she's written, less so than she's acted. I'm not saying she was acted well, but I can't really think of any scene where I went, man, her acting is what I hated about her in that scene. It was, why the crap would anyone write a character to say that sentence?
Those words,
What?
yes.
No one would say that. There's a certain scene we'll get to where we'll have to, censor ourselves because we're a PG podcast. We don't want to have to click explicit on the podcast app.
Oh.
But yeah, there's a certain scene where she just proudly says something that I don't think any human has ever proudly said the way she does. But we'll get to that, yeah. But yeah, it ends with her wanting to die, because I guess she just wants to die. Which, I feel like if you show this movie to any Gen Z kid, they're going to be into it, just because of this scene.
Suicidal impulse.
Yeah.
I mean, joking about, those impulses.
Oh,
I feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
more so what is definitely a Gen
Sure.
Z trait.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is Gen Z, that's the difference, millennials and Gen Z. Millennials, they're actually depressed. Gen Z jokes about their depression. And, I respect that. But back to this movie, because I guess we should talk about this movie. Yeah, and then, because after that, we cut to another scene of them deciding to swerve off the road onto this. There's a detour set up that presumably might have been, set up by our villains, maybe, or not. It's never explained. But they go down this detour, down this creepy old road. And Barry then tries to feel up Jenny. And when she stops him, he, asks her if she's worried if someone will find out that she has boobs. And, everyone in the car, good people, everyone else in the car, they all get on to him, like, stop it, what's wrong with you? And then he gives maybe the greatest line in cinematic history of, girls have tits. And that's, it's like, who writes that? Kim Henkel does, gosh darn it. And you know what? That's why he was right when he thought he was making the greatest movie of all time, because he did. Because of that line. Because it's the delivery is what sends it over the edge. Which I guess, maybe I'll agree. I didn't write down the actor's name because I didn't think he was good enough to care. But Barry, I give the actor who played Barry so much credit for this one line delivery. Just the, defeat as he says it. What? Everyone knows it. So I tried to assault her. She has them.
Tried to assault.
I just... Oh,
it's a known fact.
Yeah, everyone knows it.
So you gotta grab him.
Yeah.
You gotta do it.
You gotta.
And then, first of our many misuses of the flashbulb sound effect, we get it when the characters notice the car is about to come and crash into them, and when they notice the headlights, we hear the flashbulb sound effect. It's like that's a headlight. Headlights don't make sounds. But all right, movie, sure.
Headlights don't make sounds.
So yeah, and they get run off the road by a guy who gets out of the car and says, "I'm not hurt," and passes out.
Or it's less of a they run them off the road and more they get into a crash midair.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a head-on collision.
Yeah.
It's just a more accurate way to put
That's
it.
fair.
Dukes of Hazzard comes flying through the air.
And all he says is, "I'm not hurt," and he passes out.
The last word.
And that is the character's name, according to IMDb and the credits. This character's name
hurt.
is I'm Not Hurt.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I watched the credits. And I saw I'm not hurt. I was like, oh. Oh, okay.
There's another kind of funny scene here is before they split off to go kind of try to get help. I do remember thinking that line from Jenny was kind of funny where she basically says well, we can't leave him. If he dies, I'll be tried for murder. And it's first off, not how it works. She'd be tried for manslaughter at worst. But it was very funny. That's what she cared about. Someone needs to stay with him in case that he dies. Which also, if he's going to die, he's still going to die. I don't see how staying with him was going to help. You'd still... Whatever. She says, once again, some lines that are so stupid that I love them. And I don't fault the actress for that, because once again, she didn't write her lines. Let's be honest, most of my complaints about this movie are all on the feet of Kim Henkel, because he's the writer and the director, and probably a producer too. But, this is all his fault. Anything bad about this movie is his fault. Technically, anything good about it's probably also technically his fault. But...
The duality of Kim Henkel.
But yeah, Jenny, Heather, and Barry end up going off to look for help. They leave Sean with I'm Not Hurt. And
yeah,
Heather, she starts to freak out because she thinks they're being watched. And I believe it's in this scene where she makes this mention of how she's worried about how they're gonna get killed and hung up and they're gonna take out their hearts and then take the people Vanity. I don't know. It wasn't Vanity Fair. It was some other Current maybe. Some other magazine's gonna have pictures of them naked with their hearts out. Jenny, I don't think that's gonna happen. No one's gonna know you died. I don't know. She might have been popular. Maybe people will know. Maybe people will mourn Jenny. I mean Heather. Jenny lives. I mixed up the characters because I don't care about them. I don't care about anyone in this movie.
It challenges you to care.
Yeah. Then Barry drops the flashlight, and he picks it up, and it's not working for a bit, but he gets it to start working again, and we hear the flashbulb sound effect when he gets the flashlight working again, because it's a light. At this point in the movie, they're going, all lights make this sound. Later, they just put it in a couple scenes where there's no lights involved. Spoiler. It gets worse. I was already pissed at this point of stop cheapening that sound so bad, and it gets worse. And also as he gets it back on and the flashbulb sound effect happens, they do also find a dead animal on the side of the road, which I guess you could say maybe was the justification for trying to put the sound in there, because it kind of is reminiscent of the first movie when they were looking at dead bodies when the sound effect happened. Maybe that was the mindset. I would give this one scene credit if it wasn't already used for the, car crash scene. So, that's my thoughts. That's what I think of all the sound effect usage.
yeah.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it was only justified really in the first movie, and I guess you could say the prom photos. In the first movie, it had a function.
Yeah.
Pictures were being taken. It immersed you in that scene, and then afterwards, they just loaded it up in their sound shotgun and scattered it in the movies for no reason.
It sounds awesome. I get it. I do, I want to say, I get it. I get why all these people were we gotta find a place to put that awesome sound in there. but they don't
Take pictures.
Yeah, they take pictures with a flashbulb camera. Like, that's the only way it's going to make sense in the scene. But instead they went, I don't know, what if we just do it for fun? What if for, like, the first half of the movie, as we're writing what times to put it in, we give, like, half justification, like, a light turns on, a camera was technically, a different type of camera flashed. But then later, it just happens in a scene. So, at this point, they walk up and they find a trailer where I believe it's implied that she's a realtor who's named Darla is, welcoming and helps them in. And, this is our 4th Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, so you immediately know not to trust her.
Yeah.
But we're supposed to at this point. It's supposed to imply, like, maybe she's good. She's not. Spoiler.
Well, she certainly doesn't look like a hillbilly.
That's true.
She's so nicely dressed. And
yeah. And
has her hair done up.
She's got fake boobies. She can't be trailer trash. They can't afford that.
Does have fake boobies.
Oh, we know because, the only reason I didn't bring up... I normally wouldn't bring up fake boobies in a movie, but there's a whole scene of dialogue of her explaining to Jenny, who I guess was happened to glance over at her boobs, and she's like, oh, well, you see, I got these because it makes the country boys go crazy. Like, it's like, okay, why are you telling me this? And she calls someone named Vilmer to go to their crash site. Ooh, I wonder who Vilmer could be.
Definitely the realest name ever. Vilmer.
I mean, Vilmer is a name. I'm not saying it's not a bad name. Like, I mean, anyone who named their kid Vilmer should be shot and, killed on sight. But
Wow.
It is a name. It is a real name that I have definitely heard. But yeah, and then there's a rock that gets thrown through the window, and she goes, it's some hillbilly, or it's some teenagers from the local high school, but either way, and she just flashes them, and that's our, one shot of gratuitous nudity in this movie is just randomly her flashing either a random hillbilly or minors. She could be committing a crime. We don't know.
To her credit, it resolves the situation. We don't see another rock thrown through a window again.
I mean, yes and no. Because here's the thing. Let's say it is the high school boys. She is a criminal. I mean, she already is. But that's a different type of crime.
More homicidal. Yeah.
And then we cut away from them. And we cut back to the crash site. Where Vilmer, who is played by Matthew McConaughey. This is where I'm going to give a little fun fact about Matthew McConaughey. He's in commercials. No, I'm just kidding.
He advertises Lincoln car.
He actually was not initially supposed to play Vilmer. His initial role he was supposed to play was this, like, it's a character that ended up not making it in the movie in the end. But, like, in the first, like, his first scene was supposed to be, like, him driving up on a motorcycle, like, at school, and Jenny sees him, and that's it. And then at the end of the movie, he comes back, and he's, like, the one who ends up saving her. Like, that was supposed to be his role in the movie. He was supposed to have, like, it was supposed to be one day of shooting, no dialogue.
An absent love interest.
Yeah. And at the time, he was about to, like, move to California, because he had lived in Texas. That's where he shot Dazed and Confused. And, like, he had this U-Haul already packed up when he, like, had this, like, interview, and he's like, they're like, at the end of it, they're like, all right, so do you know anyone who should play this Vilmer guy? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he gave him a couple names, and he went to leave, and then he's like, no, wait, I should do that. And so he went back in, he told him that, and he ended up crashing on a friend's couch for a month while they shot the whole movie, because now he's in the whole movie, not a day's worth of filming.
I will admit, those details about this movie are kind of cool.
Yeah.
I normally don't supply these fun facts, but Renee Zellweger said that not just her own, but like a lot of the actors shared one Winnebago that belonged to one of the higher-ups, like the producers or something, for hair, makeup, and costumes and everything. And so, like, you'd have a little table in the middle for hair, be in the driver's seat for makeup, and then go back to, like, the tiny Winnebago bathroom to, put the prom dress on and everything. And she called it kamikaze filmmaking, which is a fun term. So.
I will say that's one thing that I have learned. It happens to me a lot, and I think that's part of why a lot of times I end up having a slightly more optimistic look than you guys, which is fair. Is I also will watch these documentaries where like I fall in love with the filmmakers and the actors, and like hearing them so passionately about the movie, I go, you know what? I guess it was a fun time, even sometimes when I didn't feel that way going into it. This is one where I actually did enjoy how bad it was going in, but I will say like probably like Hatchet 3 and like some of the Hatchet films were definitely movies where like I had complaints about them, but by the end of hearing just everyone talk about it, it goes like, I mean, I love Adam Green now. I can't fault him for making parts of this movie that were bad. It's like he's awesome as a dude. So, and and it's. I guess what I'm saying is, if you don't like a movie, go watch a documentary about the movie, and you might.
Sound advice.
Yeah.
Really.
And yeah, so Vilmer, he shows up, and he has a hydraulic leg.
Yep. He's Leatherface now. Surprise.
Yeah.
And it's a way cooler leg brace than the previous one. I was impressed by this leg brace.
I mean, it is cool for what it is, but it is the first of many times in this movie where you go, what, why? Like, he has like a hydraulic robotic leg that he controls with remote controls. Like, you're like,
more than one,
yeah,
and more than one battery.
What is going on? And that's one of the many times where I go, what is going on in this movie is this. But fun fact about this leg / I guess just everything else in the movie, this is where I'm going to bring this up here because he did make the leg, is our special effects were done by a man named J.M. Logan, who was only 18 years old at the time of making this film.
And he built the leg brace thing?
Yep.
That's crazy.
And like all the he did like the practical effects kind of like that as well as the makeup effects. So he's also like, we credit him for like doing Leatherface's mask and stuff as well. He did the special effects. I mean, he might have had a team around him, but he was the head of it.
And the Illuminati nipple piercings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
The
also
triple nipple piercing.
Yeah, one last fact. They weren't nipple piercings. They were just random piercings on his.
They were his 3 belly buttons in a row.
Yeah.
Come on.
But we're not at that point in this movie. But I do want to mention another cool fun fact for mostly me and a little bit of Chris and maybe one other person that might ever listen to this podcast. J.M. Logan later goes on to do effects for Halloween Town. And I was excited when I found that out. That's awesome. So I guess he did like maybe Calabar's effects. He did all the makeup on all those random town folks who have like a mask on. I don't know what he did, but I just thought it was really cool when I found out he did special effects on Halloween Town.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And then once he gets here, he has a little conversation with Sean before he kills I'm not hurt, and by snapping his
very
neck.
Casually.
Yeah, he just like, oh, you think he's alive? Snaps his neck, and you're like, okay, dang.
Anymore. Yeah.
Do you think Matthew McConaughey knocks these scenes out of the park?
I think he knocks every scene he's in out of the park.
Scene out of the park.
Like, don't get me wrong, some of those scenes are terrible, but he's giving his all in every scene he is in. Like, I think
he is.
Like, I'll say, like, and he's maybe even overacting at times. And if you think that's fair, but it was so over the top that I enjoyed every time he was on the screen, even when I'm like, this is so stupid. Why is he? Some of the sounds that I wish we did, like, we were one of the, like, a podcast or a video that like would cut in clips occasionally, because there are certain sounds this man makes in this movie that I can't do justice. They are. Like, there's moments where we'll get to them when we get to them, and I'll repraise them when they happen in the movie. But just, like, the man gives this movie 300%. And
more than it deserves.
It did not deserve any of that. And it's one of those things where you can see why this man went on to do good things. Because he had passion. Was this movie good? Did every decision he make in it great? No. But you could see the passion he had for Vilmer, brother of Leatherface.
Leader of the clan, presumably.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. I will say, yeah, I'm in the camp where I think there is some overacting,
And that's fair.
but
I think
I'll be
was
generous.
at
It was
all
my
times he's
favorite part of the
overacting in this
movie.
whole movie, and I'm okay with that because I had fun with it. But I can respect that it was definitely too much at times. When there's a certain scene that is definitely too much, and we'll get to that scene when it happens as well. But yeah. So yeah, he kills that guy, and then he starts to chase Sean down the road, and then we cut away from him. We cut back to the realtor, who is, or I guess Darla, who is warning them about the old man at the service station across the street. Which I think the implication is that this old man, I think we figure out later, might be W.E., who I would not describe as an old man.
Not at all.
But
What's the implication that leads you to that?
Because there's like a moment where I could be wrong, but I think you see his truck at the service station, and like they're on a very nothing road, and he then later drives home past them. That's once again
point. I believe that is the same truck.
Yeah. So like I think he is supposed to be this old man, but he looks like he's maybe 25, and that's
she lied. I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, so she warns them about that, and she also tells them, she gives them, I don't remember something about like how like if Vilmer tries to give you any trouble, tell him about how the cow eats the cabbage, and you're like, that's not a phrase. That's not a saying.
I've lived here all my life, and I've never once heard that phrase. I've got to say.
Yeah.
But that's what you tell Vilmer. Vilmer tries to give you any crap, you go, hey, what? How about how that cow eats the cabbage? And he goes, well, all right. You got me on that one.
You make a good point.
I'm gonna go get in my Lincoln and think about that.
Maybe have a cup of whiskey in my Lincoln, but not while I drive.
I'm also
irresponsible.
Have you ever heard of cryptocurrency?
What? Has he done a cryptocurrency?
Yes, he was probably like the big like crypto around like the Super Bowl of this year when like right before the cryptocurrency like crash happened. There was all these Super Bowl commercials about it, about how something favors the bold. I don't remember what it is. I'm sorry. Fortune favors the bold, maybe. And it was and he was one of the guys who's in all those commercials. But yeah.
I see.
But yeah, so he's gonna go drive his Lincoln and think about cryptocurrency. If you tell him about, but no one remembers to tell him about how the cows eat the cabbage, so he just kills them all.
He actually told him.
Yeah. But yeah, so then we cut back away from them. We're back at the chase, where Vilmer is obviously just kind of toying with Sean, like because he's in a truck and he's just letting Sean get away, which I'm fine with because like it definitely feels intentional. He's a predator playing with its prey. Like he is trying to do this, and he like just kind of keeps like tapping him with the truck, if I remember right, before eventually he knocks him down, and then he puts like a cassette in his cassette player, and he's like, "All right, racing fans," and then he drives over him like 12 times.
Yeah. It is really a exorbitant amount of times that he runs him over.
I'll bring it up here as kind of maybe one of my only times I think I really will do this, where I will defend this movie, is I think this scene alone shows that I don't think Matthew McConaughey ever overacted. I think he is playing the character of Vilmer the way Vilmer is written. Because Vilmer is way over the top. He runs over this guy 12 times. And unless Matthew improv'd going back and forth a couple extra times, which, I wouldn't even put it past Matthew McConaughey. But if that's in the script, I think everything else, even as over the top as it might get, I think was completely like what he was told to do. But maybe not. We'll never know. I wasn't there, and they didn't mention it in the documentary. I'm sorry.
I mean, just based on the character that he portrays and is written to be in the movie, he is is insane as an insane person can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think that's a solid defense.
That is a solid defense. That's a good point.
Also,
That's all
while he
right.
does this, there's some really cool rock music playing from the cassette he put in, so that's cool.
There is.
Yeah.
Gotta rock out while you
Yeah.
run somebody over a few
Because,
times.
you know, you gotta let those racing fans be excited.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then we cut back
that was
with
very stressful. All right.
Jenny, Barry, and Heather. And Barry and Heather follow this truck who is obviously, at this point, it's definitely W.E. He might have been coming from the service station. He might have not. It really doesn't matter. But he goes past them and goes down this like side road. And they go, hey, we should follow this guy so we can get a ride. You know, down this road that we walked in about 10 minutes. Let's say it was even 30 minutes. This guy obviously didn't want to stop when he tried to wave him down, but let's follow him to his house to hope he'll give us a ride, but not that far because we all don't seem that tired.
Yes. It doesn't seem to be a winning strategy.
But
And
Well,
once again, that is something I will appreciate about this movie. Is that one thing I enjoyed about the first one in terms of theme was that these kids like blundered right into Leatherface, and it's the same thing in this one. Like I didn't enjoy in the second one where Leatherface is like this predator, well, a hunter, I should say more like. And this one's like, yeah, they run right onto his welcome mat and barge into his house. I enjoy the, you know, it's kind of like they've got it coming a little bit.
it's fair. But yeah, they follow him. They're stupid idiots, so of course they follow. That's both of their character traits. Both of them
They are
could
stupid
be
idiots.
very easily described as a stupid idiot. And it looks like at first Jenny is gonna follow them, but she decides she gets second thoughts, and she doesn't. So she goes to check on Sean before she tries to wave down a motorcycle, which I don't know if maybe that's the last remnants of the character Matthew McConaughey was supposed to play. I don't know, because the motorcycle literally never matters again. It goes past, like every other time you see like a car or something go past someone in this movie, it's going to introduce a character later. This is just a motorcycle that goes past her. She tries to wave him down. She can't. Then she gets a bag over her head, and you're like, oh my gosh, who got her? Oh no, it's just a floating trash bag. Just, it's like the Katy Perry song. I don't remember.
the plastic flag
Yeah.
floating through the wind.
Yeah. And it hits her in the face. Then we cut back to Barry and Heather, and Heather talks about how they might be falling into a trap, but Barry thinks she's being stupid, and Heather says she just acts stupid actually.
But people will like
Yeah,
her,
so people will like her.
which has been a winning strategy.
Yeah, she is popular. I mean, she did seem to be popular. She gives off popular girl vibes. But yeah, and she also talks about how she's just like her mother, who is staying with a crappy guy because the only way to get a certain type of living she wants. Yeah. This scene is what? And then she ends it by like talking about how is it later? I don't remember. It might be here, it might be a little bit later where she gives off the line that I don't think any humans ever said, where she says, I'm a bee. And have like a callback to it a little bit later where she says, well, I'm just being that. It's the B word, the female dog.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Just the way she's like, I'm sure someone said, oh, I was being a female dog. But it's the way she says it. It's like,
Like, matter-of-fact tone.
That's who I am. It's like, I don't think anyone's ever said it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, just like,
there's no sass to it. It's just like a matter of fact. Like, well, I'm just like my mom, and she is too, I guess, is what she's saying.
leopard can't change its spots,
Because my dad is abusive emotionally, I have to be in an emotionally abusive relationship. I will not break the cycle. And this is also where we find out, once again, the last hanging vestiges of a storyline that was cut, basically, of Jenny being abused at home, because Heather tells Barry that the only reason she dresses modestly is because of that, and that she's actually really hot if you saw her at gym class.
In gym class, yeah.
I guess the implication is like in the showers at gym class. Like, she's like, I've seen her naked, and she's hot.
She's got a banging bob.
Yeah, it's like, why?
Yeah.
And the best part is Barry would be like, oh, I guess you're right. I shouldn't be mean to her. I didn't realize she was hot.
This is
I mean, we all know she has boobs because women have boobs, but I didn't know she had hot boobs. Like, that's the best part about this whole scene is, like, it's so stupid, and once it just buries, like, his reaction to this whole thing, like, yeah, she's, you know, abused at home, and she's actually hot. And he's like, it's like the moment of realization and, like, contemplation of him being like, oh, I feel bad for making fun of her now. I never knew she was hot.
Passing the line about her body in PE class also establishes Jenny as physically fit and athletically capable of doing some of the things she does later in the movie.
I mean, I guess. I guess. I don't know. I feel like that's...
She's in shape.
Sure.
Good point.
I don't know if that was even
Because
intentional.
she says, in PE. I noticed that she
I think
has
that's more so. I'm not saying that's not also an extra thing there. The reason she mentions PE class is because it's the only time that would have made sense for her to have seen her naked, Chris.
Art class, and we were
That
doing
too.
nude modeling.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
When we're in nude art class,
people do art class.
at high school, it's taught by Darla. She normally models for all of us high schoolers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That scene was terrible, but it does end with one of those moments where, once again, I couldn't stop laughing at his contemplation of finding out that Jenny is hot.
Like, wow.
Whoa. Never thought about that. I was like being mean to her for being like a prude, but like she's actually secretly hot.
Secretly hot.
I should like try to like be nice to her if I live to see her again. He doesn't though, so
He doesn't.
he never gets to make
Gotcha.
that move on her.
Yeah.
Except for the forceful one he tried to make in the car that was rejected. So even if it would never have mattered. Whatever. I gotta move on, but I feel like I could write like a whole dissertation on this one scene.
Wow.
I'm not saying it'd be a good one. I just feel like I have that much thoughts on it.
The material.
Yeah. I would fail whatever class this was for. But
Yeah. Geometry.
yeah, it was for geometry.
It
And
would
they
be a
said
terrible dissertation for geometry.
yeah, they never asked that's the thing. They didn't ask for a dissertation. But I did do a really good 3D model of what I think Jenny might look like naked. So I got some points for that. God, where was I? I lost my place on my notes because we went so
We're
off.
coming up on the Sawyer house.
Yeah, I know.
The house.
Whoa, 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 whoa! No, 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 no! They are the Slaughters now.
Are they not the Sawyers?
They're not the Sawyers in this movie. They are the Slaughters. It's never mentioned, I think, directly in the movie, but it is something that is like official. And I will say, I don't like that because, once again, I wish all these movies just had one good continuity. To be fair to this movie said the first one's the only one that matters, and in that movie, they don't have a name.
That's true.
So, but they are in
come
this
up on
movie.
the house.
Yeah, in this movie, they are coming up on the slaughterhouse. Oh,
Wow.
Kim Henkel's a genius.
Double entendre, or maybe a half one.
A tundra.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. They walk up to the slaughterhouse, where no one answers at the front door, so Barry leaves Heather to go check around back. I will give him credit. He does not try to break in the first chance he gets, which I respect
There we
that.
go.
He goes around back first, at least. This is not the first movie where they go, let's just break in.
No
Yeah.
one answered. Must mean I'm
Hello,
welcome.
Leather, I'm home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heather.
Heather takes a seat on the bench.
Yeah, she takes a seat on this little, not just a bench. What's
We
it?
get-
It's like a swing. It's a porch swing. Because it's definitely
we get-
swinging.
What is probably the most comical scene in the entire movie.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because Leatherface, he sneaks up unnoticed behind her and just starts to sniff her hair a little bit. Leatherface is played by Robert Jacks in this movie. I like to give a shout out to whoever our person under the mask in our monster movies, because I feel like it could be easy to ignore them, but I don't want to. Yes.
Well, some more trivia. I heard, co-hosted a radio show with one of the Butthole Surfers, who were a famous band out of Austin.
Man.
So
Cool.
Wow.
In this movie, he's really annoying. Because I also think this is the first time we ever hear Leatherface's voice regularly, and I think it is played by Robert Jackson. I'm not faulting Robert Jackson for it. He was told scream a lot but it is grating how much
He does scream a lot.
I do believe Robert Jackson has sadly passed away back in 2003, so 2001. So very sad that they have passed away. And I'm not speaking ill of them. I don't think Robert did a bad job as playing Leatherface. Once again, like I said earlier, anything good or bad about this movie is all on the feet of Kim Henkel. He decided that Leatherface should be super annoying in this movie. And you know what? I do think Robert did exactly what he wanted him to. And, I just wish Kim didn't want him to do that. Because Leatherface hasn't started screaming yet, but once Leatherface starts screaming, they pretty much don't stop. Also, another fun fact about this movie is, once again, we technically got a new name for Leatherface. In the first movie, Leatherface is Leatherface. In the second movie, they are only ever referred to as Bubba. In the second movie, they're only ever referred to as Junior. And in this movie, he's only ever referred to as Leather. There it is.
So I guess, okay.
Which that one, I guess, could still just be a nickname for Leatherface, technically. But once again, Leatherface is never said in this movie. Just like how it was not said in the last two movies, and they both have their own little nicknames for him now. Which, to be fair, I feel like anything but Leatherface actually makes more sense for the family to be calling this person that's in their family. Something would make more sense than Leatherface.
Yeah, that's kind of mean if you think about it.
Which, I mean, to be fair, the characters in that first movie were all very mean to Leatherface. So I guess it made sense.
That is a good point.
So yeah, after we cut away from the first time he's sniffing her hair, we cut back to the back where Barry is being held up at gunpoint by W.E. Slaughter. And this is, I will say, it happened for about this W. Slaughter, his whole character trait is kind of being Weasley and quoting things. Sometimes
literate,
sometimes a little off from my understanding, but a lot of them very close at the very least, which I guess shows that he is a somewhat learned man.
He is a learned hillbilly.
I will say though, he does it for the whole movie, and about the first 4 or so, I write down who at least said the quote, but then I stop caring because it gets to the point where it's just happening so much. And also, I will say, bad on me for taking my notes. I never wrote down what any of the exact quotes are, just who said them. So, if you want to know the exact quotes, I'm sure you can find them.
His first one is from Ulysses Grant, and I thought, that's not a character that this Southern hillbilly would be my inspiration, Ulysses Grant. That is not at all. But then it's he is a very well-read man. Yeah. He's draws from a lot of different
I believe
diverse
this first
sources.
Quote is basically the idea of hey, cross this line if you want to die, basically, or I don't, something of that nature. And it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. But he calls Barry a moron after that. He calls him a moron. It's you moron. You probably didn't even know that was Ulysses S. Grant. And it's you didn't even give him a chance. I'd be don't be wrong. Barry's a moron. Barry doesn't know.
But
you didn't give Barry a chance to answer. And we cut back to Leather, who goes in for another sniff, but Heather gets up, and Leather backs into a broom, which lets Heather know that Leather's there. Very confusing.
Heather v. Leather.
Yeah. Then they both start screaming, and Leather pulls Heather. Jeez. Leather pulls Heather into the house. She tries to get away. Inside the house, there's a little bit of a struggle where first she gets him behind a room and he eventually breaks in, and then she kind of tries to run away again, but it all means nothing because she doesn't ever really get away from him until Leatherface ends the struggle by trapping her in a freezer. He puts some sort of equipment on top of the freezer to make sure she can't get out. And then we cut away. We cut back to W.E., who is forcing Barry inside at gunpoint. And he quotes Machiavelli. And then Barry locks him outside and starts just kind of starts looking for Heather very nonchalantly. Like, he doesn't care. He's like, there's some guy out there who's trying to kill us. Hey, where are you? Where are you, girl? I heard you screaming.
He starts like hanging a piss in the middle of this, like,
yeah.
I got rid of that guy.
Yeah.
You think there's another doors on this house?
Yeah. So yeah, he goes for, like you said, he goes for a pee. Where I believe sometime during this bathroom scene, I don't remember exactly where it happened, but I do remember it happening. There is another random flashbulb sound effect that literally has no cue at all. It just happens. I think it might be when he opens the door and Leatherface is there, and it's like, see, get scared, here's the sound. But it is so pointless. And he gets hit in the head with a hammer by Leatherface, who starts screaming a bunch, because that's what Leatherface does. Leather then still hears Heather screaming and makes him scream some more, so he goes and pulls her out of the freezer because she won't stop screaming, so he puts her on a meat hook. To die, probably. No, she won't die. Heather is like a cockroach. She will keep on coming.
The only thing that will kill her is if you step on her real hard.
I mean, jeez, it was a joke, but geez, she is basically a cockroach.
Yeah.
Dang it! I wish I would have thought of that joke when, I wish I would have set that up at when the kill happened. That would have been great.
I didn't even think of that. I'll be honest.
That's so good. Yeah. So he finishes taking his pee, gets hit, and she's on the meat hook now. Then we cut back to Jenny, who waves down Vilmer's truck, and she gets in it after a little bit of time because at first she's trying to ask him questions and he's just not answering it. But she
being pretty evasive.
And honestly, I would say it's a scene where you want to go what the crap is wrong with you? But also, as someone who has not had to deal with this but have heard people's stories, there is sometimes, a lot of times, especially as a woman in this country, where you kind of just cooperate because you're scared. So she gets in the car and they start driving.
They set up her motives pretty well, because he does act really dodgy and suspicious, and we see that on her face. But then he says, I'm fixing to drive off. You can get in now and help your friend, or I'm going to leave you here stranded.
Yeah.
And so she's like, all right. So, I mean, they feel they give her a reason to get in.
That's fair.
I think pretty clearly.
And then, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, he won't tell her where Sean is. Then they start to drive, and Vilmer is getting real creepy, and in a way that I really, once again, this is a scene that is not over the top at all from Matthew McConaughey. It's just really well done being a creep, which is what he's supposed to be doing. He is doing a very good job of being unsettling in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
Before eventually it kind of ends after him being creepy, and some of the things how he brings up hey, you hear about that guy who picked up that hitchhiker and took off their arms and put them in a pot? And she's like, oh yeah. And he's like, I thought that was a lazy way to kill someone. And you're like, jeez, Vilmer, a little too strong. You don't want her to know you're gonna kill her yet.
No imagination.
Yeah, no imagination. Vilmer.
Yeah.
And then eventually it ends with him revealing that in the back of the truck, to a flashbulb sound effect as we see this reveal, that he has Sean and I'm Not Hurt's bodies hung up from the hook of the tow truck.
Yeah.
Just dangling.
Yeah.
Spoilers. I'm Not Hurt is hurt.
Yeah, he's dead. He died immediately when he said I'm not hurt. Well, no, it's
Yeah.
true. He passes out, and then he dies when Vilmer snaps his neck.
Yeah.
But there's nothing else to refer to him as, because he doesn't have a name. His name is I'm Not Hurt. I'm sorry.
That's true. Thankfully, this is the last time we see him
Yeah.
to see.
Then Jenny, she jumps out of the truck, and Vilmer puts his chasing tape on as he chases her.
All those racing fans.
Yeah, it's not. He doesn't say that same line here, but he should have, because actually now he's actually racing. He's trying to catch her. The first time he says the line, it's after he already knocked him down and is planning on running him over, which is not what you do in a race. Just want to say, it was a weird placement for the line, honestly. And then while he's chasing her, he does his Matthew McConaughey laughs. Like, I wrote this, laughs how only Matthew can. Like, he's just like such a Matthew McConaughey laugh as he's chasing her, because he's getting a lot of glee out of this. Like, I can't do a Matthew McConaughey laugh impression, but it is very much a Matthew McConaughey laugh. You go, Matthew McConaughey, I forgot you were in this. Not really, you can't forget he's there, and he's very much Matthew McConaughey.
He also has the foresight to actually run into the trees and not just stay on the road, which is what Sean did.
That is true.
Once again, distinguishing her as the smart one of the bunch.
That's why she's the only one who gets to live. And also, she's got a hot body. I saw it in gym class.
She's not just a nerd. Let me tell you. Secretly, she's real hot.
Yeah. But also, she can outrun a car in a field.
I do think that there is an element of he is not trying
driving
to,
slow.
drive. He is having fun chasing her because he is a sick freak. Like,
that is certainly an element of it.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong.
She ends up at his house.
Yeah.
So
I think he knows that she's in his trap. This whole, like, miles of radius are his.
Well, yeah, she does back her into the trees, and then she chooses to hide in the trees. He's like, well, you sure about that? And she's like, yeah. And she hangs out in the trees, and he said, well, suit yourself.
He's always posing questions. A lot. It's really frustrating. I don't know if there's anything deeper than just the infuriating effect it has, but it's like one of his methods of verbal torment is that he's never just like straight with people. He's always like probing and prodding and questioning them, forcing them to repeat themselves. Again, I don't know how deep that goes, but it's an infuriating trait.
It's fair. Well, maybe the reason he left her is because he saw Leatherface behind her, because Leatherface pops out with his chainsaw and he chases her through the forest. Haven't seen that before in every movie. Not the second. To be fair, the second movie didn't do that, actually. Credit to the second movie, there was no forest chasing. But it was in the first, it was in the third, and now it is in this one. And yeah, he chases her for a little bit. Through like a pond. Like, they go through water. Like, they wade through like a lake or pond. I don't know exactly what it is. It does seem less swampy than the last movie, so I feel like this movie at least somewhat understands its setting a little better. But there is a body of water that they wade through. I only bring it up because I think, because it's in my notes, I probably thought it was going to be more important. Like, maybe that was going to be the thing that slowed her down for him to catch her. Nah. They just go through the pond. It's just part of this chase scene. She then hides at the slaughterhouse. Once again, that is the slaughter family house, not a slaughterhouse. Like the place of business. If you want to see a slaughterhouse, tune into, I think, 2 movies from now. Might be next movie as well. Spoilers. Ooh. I told you a setting in one of these movies. Ooh, spoiler.
Said it.
But yeah, and once she's inside, she goes upstairs and she finds a corpse of a sheriff and takes his gun. And while this is happening, Leatherface is destroying the door because Kim Henkel really liked that scene from the first movie. So yeah, he destroys the door, and right as he's about to come in, Jenny goes to shoot Leatherface, but the gun's empty. There's no bullets. So Leatherface chases her upstairs, and Jenny jumps out of the window and lands on the roof. Woo! And also, like, yes, I mean, I like seeing people jump out of windows. I'm cool with that being like the element that they stole from the first movie. And if they did that in every movie, I'd be completely fine with that, because that's a cool thing. And I also think this stunt was actually really cool. Well done. Like, because she's like,
this whole sequence.
She's also on a roof. Like, they're actually like shooting this on a roof. I saw like once again, I watching the documentary. I saw like the shot of like the stunt performer hit the pad on the roof and like kind of roll and barely catch herself before she fell off the roof. So it was pretty cool.
And then she climbs the weather vane or whatever that is.
First, she gets chased like up to the other, because first Leatherface falls her out, and he chases her all the way up the ceiling across to the other side of it. Where she decides the best way to get away from him is to climb up where I can't run anymore. And she climbs up a weather vane. Because
she's no longer the smart one at this point.
yeah, or an antenna. I'm not sure exactly what it was supposed to be, but like it's some sort of metal.
It's a TV antenna.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was an antenna. But Chris said weather vane, and I was like, Chris is smarter than me.
I've never seen a TV antenna that large before, but it's just the 90s.
Vilmer has to be able to. It probably isn't a TV antenna. It's probably the transmitter to get information to the Illuminati.
The Illuminati. Yeah.
But yeah, so she chases her up there, and he's like starting to like hack at it with his chainsaw. And before he's able to, fully cut it down, she jumps to like a telephone wire or electric wire or something that's above her and just catches onto it and like shimmies her way across it a bunch.
Yep.
Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's cool. Once again, this is one of those scenes where like, I'm not going to fault this scene. Is it stupid and convoluted? Yeah. But it was really cool and well done. Like, the actual
athletic prowess is astonishing.
And she crosses to a tree. And she looks like she's in the tree, but I guess she's not actually in the tree because Leatherface cuts the wire, dropping her to the ground, like through like the ceiling of a old greenhouse. Yeah. Then she starts to get up and she leaves the greenhouse, but then Leatherface comes bursting out through the wall.
Yeah, he's Jason now.
Yeah, he
and the Kool-Aid Man.
Once again, though, like, is it stupid? Yeah, but there was a cool like glass explosion stunt, so like I was kind of down with it.
It was a cool glass explosion stunt.
I will say that here, which I read it here because it like this whole like sequence of like her jumping out the window, climbing up the thing, jumping onto the wire, then this fall, then the glass breaking is just some like really cool stunts, like in like a solid like 2 minutes of stunts, and that's about it. We get really in the movie. It's like here's the stunt budget, here it is. There are a few other things. There's like a small fire stunt. Like, I'm just saying, like there is like most of the stunts are in this one scene. Like you're like, oh, okay, like here's like 5 cool stunts back to back that any one of them would be an impressive stunt to pull off, and they did like all of them. Probably not all at once, but you get my point. They still did all these stunts. Yeah. So credit to stunt coordinator David Sanders.
Good old Sanders.
No, I don't think he was Colonel Sanders, no.
Good old Mr. Sanders.
He was a mere private.
Private.
Yeah. Colonel Sanders, that's my father's name.
You gotta do a lot of impressive stunts before you're promoted to making fried chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then he starts to chase her, and she ends up at Darla's trailer. Darla tells her it's nothing to worry about. And I will say, once again, this is one of the few scenes where I actually, like, I will say, for the most part, I thought that Renee Zellweger was kind of just there in this movie, which, credit to her, she wasn't bad, but she didn't do anything I cared about, except for this one scene. Her, like, line delivery of being like, he had a chainsaw. Like, she said it like a couple times. Like, she's like, "Oh, don't worry." Like, he was chasing me with a chainsaw. Like, I was like, okay, I respect that. It's like, she was reacting the way you should when someone tries to tell you, "Don't worry about the guy chasing you with a chainsaw." She's like, "No, he could have killed me. What are you talking about?" And she calls WE, and he comes and starts to just cattle prod Jenny. And what feels like a very just mean scene. Like, it's just like, oh gosh, he's like cattle. Like, don't get me wrong, yes, these are horrible murderers, and they have been in all these movies. But something about the cattle prod feels like the only scene that I can think of that feels as mean is maybe when the cook in the first movie is like just hitting her with the broom on the drive. Like, when he knocked her down, that was necessity.
Very reminiscent of.
Yeah. But this one, it just felt very like, it's just like, okay, he's a bad guy. He then ties her up and quotes Ralph Waldo Emerson. Woo! More quotes.
I love her.
He then asks her what. Then he gets really kind of creepy as he's like putting her in the trunk, being like, "Oh, what'd you give me if I let you go?" Like some very gross implications there, but I guess. To her saving, here comes Darla to tell him to go away, and she closes the trunk on her.
Yeah.
Thanks, Darla. Darla's the hero.
Dang.
Darla's not the hero we need, but Darla's the hero we deserve.
Yeah.
He is the one that we got.
No.
Then Darla heads to go pick up some pizza with Jenny in her trunk. And Jenny is just kicking and hollering. And there's like a little scene where like Darla tries to is like flirting with the pizza guy. And he's like, I don't remember what he says. It doesn't matter. But he's like,
oh, what you got in that trunk?
Yeah, and she's
He's
like,
oh, you wouldn't want to know.
And she like asks him to come look, and he's like, I can't. I'll lose my job. So she goes to go back to the trunk to close
reverse
it,
psychology.
because either I can't tell if like Jenny kicked it open or if she's going back there to shut her up. In like some videos I saw about it, they mentioned like Jenny opening the trunk, so maybe Jenny had kicked the trunk open. I'm not sure. I took it more as her going back there to be like, shut up, you're gonna get me in trouble. Because not only was the pizza guy like noticing this, there was also some cops behind her. One of which has the hots for Darla because she's the pretty girl in this town. So we gotta like her because she's pretty. She got the fake boobies. She shows them to everyone who throws a rock at her. We all know that.
Path to her heart.
Yeah. And there's even like a line from the female cop who's like, she's not gonna care, kind of a thing. Like, he's like, I'm gonna go try anyway. Fun fact for literally almost no one: the female cop who has like half a line, she is played by I don't know what her name was at the time, but her name later is Deborah Michaels, and she is the former wife of Steve Mongo McMichael, the football player, as well as later on being the wife of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that's pretty cool. And she did some work in the WWF as like a manager, so I thought that was pretty cool that she's in this movie.
I was trying to connect how being a wife of a football player was cool fact.
Well, to be fair, Steve Mongo McMichael also wrestled in WCW, and that's the only reason I know she was also married to him. I think he played for the Bears. Could be wrong, though, because I'm not a football fan.
You texted him, though. He went to UT, I believe.
Yeah, puts the hole in the bag. And
yeah, so yeah,
the cop doesn't notice anything.
Yeah, the cop doesn't notice anything. But the best part about, once again, another, like, this is like the second and probably only scene where I really, maybe the third one later, where I really liked a line from Ginny, where she's like, why are you doing this? She's like, I can't breathe. So she just pokes a hole in the mouth, and then she's quiet for the rest of the ride home. And it's like, what? That's enough. She's like, I can breathe now.
A reasonable request.
Yeah. She's like, okay, here you go. Here, you can breathe now. And that's enough for Jenny, though. Like, Jenny isn't, like, actually, like, wanting out. She just couldn't breathe. She's like, I'm okay with you kidnapping me. I'm come from a family of abuse. I'm just going to accept whatever you throw at me. But can I just please be able to breathe?
It's a small request, really.
And, Darla, she's like, all right, here you go. You can breathe now.
Reasonable circumstances.
Yeah. Because Darla is our hero. Then on her way home...
she is certainly our most conflicted villain.
Yeah. Then on the way home, Darla runs into Heather on the side of the road. Apparently she got off the meat hook and crawled her way out here. And then Darla, like, it's like, this scene is so funny. It is so stupid and funny. As she, like, goes over, grabs a stick, and, like, so half-heartedly starts hitting her. And because I guess, she's not used to being the one to do any sort of violence to people. But she knows, I gotta do this. And you got Heather being like, please stop. And then Darla is like, all right, well, you wait right here. And she leaves her.
Don't you move.
I loved it. I loved this scene. Like,
which, originally when I had first seen the scene, I thought the implications were that she just left her there and was going to run her over on the way back to the house.
Yeah, yeah.
Darla doesn't beat the killing. Unlike Grandpa, Darla is not the best at killing.
Yeah.
No, she is not.
But yeah, so she leaves her, and then they head to the house, where we have Leatherface, who is now in a motherly getup. Very similar to the first one, maybe. Not quite, but like definitely paying homage to that.
Yeah.
And he's being tortured by WE before Darla stops him. Because once again, Darla is a hero.
She's the glue of this family.
She really kind of is, which is sad. Because she's also unhinged, and she is the most hinged, if you know what I mean.
Most hinged. She is dangling from a hinge.
Like a typical door, three hinges. She's got one. Most of these have none. Like, she's there.
It's one, and it is fairly bent from sustaining so much weight.
Especially, like, it's also been, like, repeatedly kicked onto the ground by Vilmer, so it's really bent.
There's that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, she stops WE. I think that's, once again, I didn't write it down, and this is around the point where I stopped writing it down, but I do believe WE throws another quote at her about it, and then... I'm not going to remember the other times he gives quotes. I don't remember who he quoted here, but I'm pretty sure this is like around the point in the movie where I went, got it. WWE is going to be doing a lot of quotes. WE Slaughter is going to be doing a lot of quotes, and I don't care anymore. I kind of care the first couple, and you've lost me.
Yeah. Eventually he speaks in an original sentence, and it's a bit of a surprise.
So yeah,
not just quotes.
Once we get inside, we get some confirmation that Vilmer and Darla are in a relationship. Like, it was pretty obvious, like with some of her dialogue when she was on the phone with him, or like when she was talking to Jenny about calling him. But this is that first one where you go, oh, okay, they're in a relationship, an abusive one, but a relationship. WE then redoes the line, "Look what your brother did to the door," talking to Vilmer. Not nearly as much like care. And then he goes, "Drayton Sawyer, Texas Chainsaw Massacre," because he only quotes things.
I was really like, wait, he didn't say that, did he?
No.
I was like,
that would have been great though if he was like, "Look what your brother did to the door."
Drayton Sawyer.
Drayton Sawyer. No, he doesn't. He just says in like almost like a not caring tone, like, "Look what your brother did to the door." It's like, call back. You got me. You did it. You did the thing.
Again, for the 6th time in the movie.
Thank you, Kim. You remember the first movie you wrote. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Remember that first movie where it was really implied that the Illuminati was involved? No?
Well, it was subtle. You keep your eyes peeled. You'll see the penumbra of the Illuminati around the movie. They're there. Their influence is obvious.
All of the triangles that you see in the movie.
Various eyes.
Also, I guess to be fair to the Illuminati, this movie never directly says Illuminati. It's just a New World Order-esque group that's leading the people.
Yeah, it says Illuminati on the side of Matt McConaughey's truck.
Does it?
That's the name of his wrecking company, yeah.
I take it back. I missed that.
They went from hiding pentagrams in the streets of Boston to just, like, slapping their name on the side of their underlings' vehicles,
Well, maybe Vilmer just did that himself. Let's be real. Vilmer's a little bit of a loose cannon. Vilmer's like, I want people to know.
He's not the best conspirator. No.
Look what you did to the door. Vilmer then gets really, like, once again, really well done, scary towards Jenny, like, as he's, like, getting all up in her face. And he also, this is our first moment where he seemingly, at this point, you think, oh, this guy's just kind of a little crazy. He offhand mentions about how the FBI is surveilling the house. And you're like, what could that mean? It means what you already know, because we've said it like 12 times, because it is the thing to know about this movie is Matthew McConaughey is in it and acts like a crazy man, and they went to the Illuminati for some reason. Those are the two things to know about this movie.
Yep.
So, yeah. And then also, I guess there's another point here where he quotes something else, because I wrote, W.E. keeps quoting famous people. Didn't write down who he quoted, but apparently he does another famous person quote, and I was like, all right, shut up, W.E. Slaughter. Which, well, I will say, was a fun joke from Kim Henkel in the first movie of, the name of the butcher shop, or the barbecue place, and now it's, this character's actual name.
It's his name. Yeah.
Also, I think canonically is also supposed to kind of be the name of Drayton Sawyer according to the third movie. He was supposed to be W.E. Sawyer. Because once again, this movie doesn't care. None of these movies care about continuity.
Forgot about that, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
None of these movies care about the other movies except for the first one.
Sometimes.
That is the law. Yeah. Sometimes.
They care about them to the extent that they can plunder them for details and sound effects.
I would say the only movie, and like, don't get me wrong, it's a tonal shift, and I get that for people's complaints for it. But the only movie that actually really seemed to care about the source material even was the second one, because Tobe Hooper was like, cool, I'm going to make a sequel to this movie. And like, these are the same characters, and it feels like what those characters would be doing 10 years later, I guess, in this version of the world. But I guess in every other version, it's just like, hey, Leatherface, remember him? He's back with a new cast of kooky characters.
He's got a big family, and they all care about him, and they're all kind of identical. And
yeah, crazy.
You know, they all have different grandpas. And, yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leatherface, sorry, I don't want to say Leatherface here. Sometimes I write Leatherface, sometimes I write Leather. This time it needs to be Leather because Leather drags Heather, and Vilmer starts to forcefully kiss her / bite her mouth. Because he comes up bloody mouthed. So he, like, bit her tongue or lips or something after, he forced himself on her. Vilmer's a hero. No, Vilmer is not a hero. Darla is our hero. She's not either. That was also bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. I will say there is an element you could argue. I don't know. I'm getting into this now, rather than it's not that important. But I guess you could make the argument that Darla is, in a lot of ways, kind of very loosely like Leatherface in the first movie, where you could say they're a victim. She is very much abused and reacting the very wrong way, but maybe she's so broken due to what she's been through. Maybe. She is, but that's not the point. The point is, everyone's bad, except even Jenny. I don't like her either. She's done nothing wrong, but she's also done nothing good. She's just here, this whole movie. So yeah, after he forces himself on Heather, Darla starts to clean. We cut away into a different scene where Darla is cleaning up Jenny, and Darla says that, Vilmer's actually a really good guy when you get to know him. He's just really stressed because of his job. And Jenny asks if his job is to kill people. Darla then proceeds to say that the Illuminati is controlling everything, including killing Kennedy.
But they never expressly say the Illuminati.
They don't expressly say it. And also, YouTube algorithm. I am not perpetuating a theory that someone was involved in the assassination of Kennedy. This movie was. Just want to put that out there. Hopefully the YouTube algorithm hears that explanation. Oh, they didn't? We've already been flagged for me just saying what happened in the movie? Got it. Cool.
But yeah, this movie does, jump the shark and throws the Illuminati into the mix.
Yeah.
And you're like, surely she's just crazy. And that Vilmer's just like an evil psychopath. But as we come to find out, that is not the case. This is all reality and all true things that she is telling Jenny at this very moment in time.
He is a low-caste member of the Illuminati, and it's a stressful gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then the Illuminati's been around for 1,000 to 2,000 years. Darla can't remember. Which I want to believe that was the actress being like, 1,000, 2,000 years? I can't remember, but she did it in character where Kim Henkel went, I like it. We'll keep it.
Yeah.
Your character is a little stupid. You wouldn't remember. Then Vilmer shows up. He kicks Darla out of the room and puts a knife to Jenny's throat, and he starts to count down from 10. And he's like, give me a reason not to kill you. And she gives him the most non-reason of, you want me alive for some reason, which breaks him, and he goes, you all right.
You're a smart girl.
That's what I like about my victims. They are stupid, but I stay the same. I don't know, you know. They get younger, but I stay the same age. Well, that's not the right movie, Matthew. Oh, sorry. Then in the kitchen, Vilmer and Darla start fighting, which gives, and like this is like a point where like, he starts to like hit her a little bit, so she like takes off her shoe and like takes him to the ground and is pounding on his head. And that actually gives Jenny enough of a chance to grab a shotgun and get everyone down to the ground but Vilmer, who just starts slicing his chest and, you know, dares her to shoot him. And Darla tries to play peacemaker, so Vilmer then throws her to the ground. She's trying to like, hey, stop. So he throws her. Don't you dare get involved in him and Jenny's gunfight.
Dance of death.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you learn that Vilmer has been shot and run over multiple times,
Yes.
according to WE?
Which, that could be not true. That could also be
Intimidation.
stating that the Illuminati has powers to bring him back from the dead. I'm not sure which. It could literally be interpreted as either W.E. Sawyer is crazy, or Slaughter. Sorry, I did it too. Because, you know, 2 movies of them being Sawyers and one of me knowing that, so calling them Sawyers the whole time. But, yeah.
Yeah.
So, W.E. There's no WB. He's not actually in this scene. I don't know why. I mean, he is. He's on the ground.
He is.
But,
yeah.
I'm just saying. Like, we brought him up when we were discussing. I guess you mentioned because he mentions him being shot. That's why we brought him up. I couldn't remember why we brought him up. I was like, why did we bring up WE? But yeah, so he throws her down to the ground and he starts choking her with his hydraulic leg. Jenny tries to get Heather up so they can leave, and then puts the gun at Vilmer's side to try and stop him from killing Darla. He then basically, plays mouth harmonica on the barrel, is what we'll call it. If you don't know what that means, tune into one of our other podcasts and you should be able to figure it out. But any other way of trying to describe what he does to this will probably get us flagged on YouTube, so I will just say he has it in his mouth and he plays harmonica with it, basically. Which that, finally gets her to pull the trigger, but the barrel was empty. So Vilmer takes the gun and shoots the ceiling, which
the other barrel,
which I guess shows,
guess.
One of the barrels was, loaded, so she had a chance of killing him, but she did not get that chance here. And then I have a note here that I feel like I want to say what I wrote here, but then I watched Dead Meat's kill count on this movie, and I realized that they, James over there, made the exact same joke I wanted to make, because it's the best way to describe what this scene happened here. And I had seen that video, so maybe that was subconsciously in my head, so I want to credit them for this joke, and I don't want anyone to try to accuse me of stealing it, but he basically does his impression of a Tusken Raider from Star Wars. Like, he is a sand person, like, God, he's got the gun going up above his head, like, he's, like, going, like, full, like it's, like, it is a perfect description of what he does. Like, there is no other way to describe it. They beat me to it, like, officially. They might have even subconsciously, I might have remembered that, and that's why I thought it. But it's also just exactly what happens. So, credit to Dead Meat. Like, they need us to credit them. They're a huge channel that we will never be near. But yeah. Yeah, he's, so then he lifts his... What's that say? Oh. Okay, yeah, then Jenny runs away and steals Darla's car. But before she can leave, Vilmer jumps down from above her and makes the weirdest noise ever as he lands on her. Like, this is that moment where I talked about earlier, where I wish we put sound effects and, like, clips into this. Because I can't do this sound effect justice by even trying. And it's also one of those ones that's weird enough that even if one of you could, it probably wouldn't get picked up through Discord. Like, it is the weirdest sound ever as he, like, makes this scream as he falls out of it. And it is maybe one of the funniest sounds I've ever heard. It is hilarious as he, like, lands on
it is hilarious, blood. Dude. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. But I don't want to like find the clip and edit it in because that sounds like a lot of work. And yeah, so I'm not going to. You look up Matthew McConaughey, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Next Generation, and you'll probably find all the great clips of him from this movie, and you'll watch a 6-minute video, and you'll have saved an hour and 25 minutes of your life. But yeah. And then as he does that, he stays on the hood, though. And he holds onto the hood as she starts to drive away. And he like kind of tries to get up towards her. And eventually she slams on the brakes and he falls off. But while he falls off, he also pops the hood open, which causes her to crash.
Somehow. Yeah.
Yeah. Very impressive.
It's hard to do from the outside of the car.
The skill he picked up while being in the
It's a crappy car that he
employee of
had
the Illuminati.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. Here's the thing: they could have not put it in there, and they still could have had her crash, and it would have been fine. But they did, so it's there. But also, I think the more crazy thing is somehow, like, sure, yeah, maybe car-wise you couldn't maybe actually pull that off. But as someone who doesn't know a lot about cars, I was like, oh yeah, sure, he fell off the hood and it popped open.
Yeah.
But somehow, throughout that little part after that, he's holding on to the bottom of the car because in the next shot we get his like hand come out and grab her ankle before we cut away. So he was under the car for the rest of that crash, which I think is
lending some credence to WE's claim that he can get run over and it does him no harm.
You know,
we see that happen. So
fair. WE is a genius, and he is the hero of this movie. Apparently, that's the joke I'm going with. That's the running gag for this movie.
Leatherface is the hero of this movie.
No, he's not. No, not this time. He screams too much.
Leatherface is barely
a character.
Actually, I will say,
Yeah.
Leatherface is also the hero of this movie because this is a slasher movie, and Leatherface is doing his best impression of a scream queen. So he is also the hero of this movie.
By default.
Yeah. Yeah, so she gets recaptured, and Vilmer then takes her back to the house, and we get another close-up of lipstick being put on. This time, it's Leatherface in some negligee, who now has boobs.
Okay, that is worthwhile actually.
Yeah.
With the lipstick at the beginning, that does make some sense.
I guess. I mean,
this is what I come to see.
like they definitely called it back here, but I don't really see the connection between the two characters on why now we're using the same shot for Leatherface. Like I don't like once again, there might be some like philosophical reasoning behind it that I don't see, but I just see it as like let's do that same scene again, but this time for shock value it's Leatherface.
Just irony.
Yeah.
I don't know if I see any like meaning to it. It's just nice irony.
But I think the more important part of this scene that we kind of glossed over here is Leatherface has boobs for the rest of the movie.
Like for the rest of the movie, yeah.
Like and like you can kind of see.
He doesn't have his skin.
Yeah, you can see where like the disconnect is between like his neck and it. So it's like it's supposed to be like some boobs and
he's
skin
wearing somebody.
cut off of someone like he does his faces. So yeah, but the rest of the movie, Leatherface has boobs. You know,
which girls have.
Girl.
We've been told that girls have them,
So,
and yet Leatherface has them.
Might be a girl. I'm not sure. Barry would be very confused right now because he's like, but wait, I don't
We've
know.
established it's
Yeah.
a known fact.
And this is also one of those moments where I just want to very loosely talk about it because we're not at all the people to talk about it. But I want to say that this very well might be another one of those times where horror movies especially portray a character that could be identified as trans in a very bad light. Shame on you, horror. And we'll move on from there because none of us are from the trans community, so none of us really have the authority to talk about this at a deeper level. But I do think it is something that I wish horror stopped doing. It's been being done since Psycho, and it's still happened till probably much more recently as well. But yeah, we'll move on now. So where did I leave off? Boobs. There it is. I actually wrote the word cleavage in my notes. I was a little more respectful in my notes, but for the podcast,
Tactful?
I'll get dirty. I'll say the word boobies.
Disgusting.
I know.
I'd never.
We then get a scene of Darla and Vilmer fighting / kissing / her messing with his leg / showing the weird power dynamic in their relationship. Like, I feel like there's a lot to unpack here that I don't understand how to. It's a weird scene that goes on long enough that I feel like it's supposed to be important. But I can't tell you why. So Darla eventually leaves with the pizza.
It's that male versus female, the power dynamic.
Maybe. Like, it definitely
There we
could
go.
be, but
Evergreen answer.
While Vilmer is powerful, he is still just subject to his baser instincts,
I guess.
which is violence and sex.
You know,
I mean, harmonica.
gosh,
Yeah.
he gets in trouble.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Then we head to
Sorry,
this movie's dinner scene.
Dinner scene. Woo!
It's obligatory.
Dinner scene.
There we go.
Dinner scene. Dinner scene. And this one, it's all right. According to Vilmer, as he opens the scene.
Those are the words he says.
He does. He says one of his famous lines from,
Dazed and
Dazed and Confused in this movie.
Yep.
All the other times I've jokingly said it throughout the script, when we were joking earlier, those didn't happen. This one actually happens. And I feel like that needs to be stressed. The character of Vilmer also says that. And then gets in his Lincoln and drives... No, that part also that didn't happen.
Does he actually say all right?
100% he says all right as he enters the room.
As he enters the room, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Didn't even notice that.
Yeah, and then he walks over and slaps Jenny awake. Jenny screams. Vilmer screams. Leatherface screams. W.E. talks to this movie's grandpa. And then Darla says she can't help because Vilmer will blow her up by triggering this device that's in her head.
Something in her head.
Which Jenny retorts, "There's nothing in her head," which W.E. thinks is funny.
Yeah.
Because throughout this movie, we kind of established earlier when she stopped W.E. from torturing Leatherface and torturing Jenny. W.E. doesn't really like her.
Yeah.
And it's
there's some familial friction as well.
Yeah.
Like, he intimates that, she's wedged herself between him and Vilmer somehow, or,
I guess she softened Vilmer up maybe a little bit.
You're
Vilmer
tearing
used to be
this
even worse.
family apart.
Yeah, Vilmer used to be even worse until she came in. She's actually made him a better person.
He used to be cool.
W then tells Grandpa that family values have gone straight
eroded. Yeah.
Then Jenny...
You can't just murder people like you used to.
Jenny then slaps Vilmer, which, a couple times, and it kind of, seems almost like it's earning his respect that she's standing up to him. But then... I lost my place. Then he points at her. He, very, two-finger point, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's right. That's what he does. Yeah.
Puts it in her mouth almost, I think, in this scene. That might be a different scene where he puts his fingers in her mouth. I don't remember. Yeah. I lost my place. She tells him he's full of it, which pisses Vilmer off. So he pushes Darla down and knocks W.E. out and maybe kills him because we never see W.E. again. I guess he hits him so hard W.E. is knocked out to death. Or he lives. Because W.E. is the final girl. Because he is the hero. Which this also causes Grandpa, who seemed like he was doing the Grandpa thing of not moving at all, to just get up and leave. He picks grabs a knife, gets up and leaves, and is never seen in the movie again.
Which is kind of funny, I've got to admit.
I feel like it's kind of implied that Grandpa isn't really Grandpa in this scene. He's kind of just a stranger that's been kept here.
Maybe. I don't know. I didn't take that at all.
Because Grandpa doesn't seem like he's really keyed into anything that's happening here.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. He's kind of... I think he's just here for the joke of him getting up. Because he looks like he might be dead. I think you're looking more into it at all. He's like, oh, this has gone crazy. And the Benny Hill music hits, and he walks out the room.
You say Benny Hill?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm glad you approve of my joke. It was supposed to be a throwaway line I just thought of in the moment, but it got Chris.
Austin is the star of this movie. We've established.
I am the star. I am the hero.
Austin is the hero of this movie.
But actually, Chris is doing this podcast sick, which means he's the hero of this podcast. And Isaiah
showed up to the podcast at all, which means he's the hero of this specific part of the podcast.
I guess. Yeah, sure, fine. My joke was going to be that he was going to be the one person who wasn't the hero, but I guess we can let him have it.
All right, slipping in. Here you
go. So yeah, WB's dead. Grandpa leaves. Jenny is about to leave after telling everyone, I'm gonna leave, okay? She gets up and Leatherface starts to, scream, because that's what Leatherface does in this movie, very annoyingly. So she tells him to sit down first, and he keeps yelling, because he starts to get up too, to follow her, and she's like, sit down, and then she tells him to, I think, shut the F up. And so he sits down, and so he shuts up, and it's like, all right.
Oh.
Jenny's got some power now.
To anyone who yells at him.
Yeah, which, honestly kind of fits the character of Leatherface. Honestly, throughout all the movies, for the most part. I feel like if you have enough authority to Leatherface, he's going to be like, crap, I guess you're the alpha in this situation. I know I'm not. I'm surrounded by...
the third movie.
Yeah, except for the third movie. Sometimes. Yeah, the third movie, we'll just move on. We'll just move on, okay? We're moving on. Moving right along. I keep saying moving right along as I, scan my notes to find out where to go next. Just gonna move on.
In comes the Illuminati.
Yeah, a limo shows up.
Basically.
And two men in suits come inside the house. The main one, who, according to the credits, his name is Mr. Rothman. He's actually played by a man by the name of James Gale, who was also a stage actor at the same time, playing King Henry, on the same days, basically, he was doing this. He was switching back and forth. I don't know which King Henry it was, 5th, 8th, I don't know. But,
oh my gosh.
But I just thought it was really funny, because he's very, kind of British, and, so he was, at the same time, doing, some stage work as, this very regal role.
Shakespeare.
Yeah, Shakespearean, regal role, and now he's also playing the guy with the weird etchings and piercings.
The head of the Illuminati, question
mark. I don't know if he's the head of the
Illuminati.
Illuminati. I think he's the guy who is sent to talk to Vilmer. I still look at him as someone who has... Yeah, there's still definitely people above him. Yeah. He's Vilmer's boss, but there are definitely... His boss probably has a couple bosses, it feels... it's a corporate hierarchy.
Yeah. And what's hilarious about this scene is that we get a character in the movie walk into the movie and tell us that the movie's not scary. He looks in and he looks around and he's like, what's going on? You're just, beating people around. This is not horror. That's almost word for word the line that we hear, and I think, you're right, buddy. Rothman, you hit the nail on the head. This is not a horror movie. This is, borderline the Three Stooges at this point.
Yeah. He consoles Jenny, and he gets her to sit back down, and like you said, yeah, he tells her things are going to change. And then tells Vilmer this is appalling. That Vilmer is only here for one thing, and that he wants people to know the meaning of horror. Which, yeah, I don't know. I felt like that scene just was what? It's some sort of meta commentary, I guess, probably from Kim Henkel. But I think this is me trying to step into the very weird shoes of Kim Henkel and say that I think the implication behind the scene is basically him saying that, horror movies aren't scary. The real scare is the people who are controlling us from the secret people we don't know about. I think that's what this line is supposed to mean. I could be wrong, but I take it as him trying to be see, you think these backwoods crazy people who just do things are what's crazy and scary about the life, but the real crazy scary thing is that there's someone controlling people. Or not, because who knows? Because it's Kim Henkel.
Dude, it's a valid stab, I
guess.
It's
Kim Henkel. Who knows? This movie is...
people controlling us to make us do these heinous things.
Yeah.
There's something.
What? I mean, I won't take a stab at what it's supposed to mean.
Yeah, it is.
In the scene itself, it just implies that the Illuminati subsists on scaring people, like Monsters Incorporated.
Yeah. This is in the same universe as Monsters Inc.
Get the screen gas
The scream gas? Yeah.
Well, don't they know then? If that's the case, the second movie should be the one they want to be a part of, because that movie had some more laughs in it, which is actually more powerful.
10 times more powerful, yeah.
They really needed to go beyond the set of, Dazed and Confused. That movie would have got them a lot more power.
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey is also part of the Illuminati in that movie, and the Illuminati wants you to, date high school girls when you're not in high school. It's a fact.
I haven't seen it.
I just know that one line of like the best thing I like about high school girls. I get older, but they stay the same age. All right, all right, all right. And that's where the line comes from, everyone who loves to quote it. The all right, all right, all right. It comes from right after him talking about how he likes to date high school girls. Like, don't get me wrong, I know that's not Matthew McConaughey saying that. But, like, this famous quote that people love, like the all right, all right, all right, which has become its own thing at this point, is literally from his character being like, I like statutory. All right, all right, all right. And you're like, okay. Just saying, it's a little flawed.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, the Illuminati's here. This movie, at this point, it's so what's going on? Because then after this, Mr. Rothman, he opens up his shirt, he unbuttons it, and he reveals these weird scarring and like piercings on like these three
Like 3 belly buttons in a row is what it looks
not really
like.
like belly buttons. Like I guess it could be like Audi belly buttons. But they look more like just like sores almost that like stick out.
Yeah.
It's weird. I don't know if it's
They
supposed to
look
mean
like
anything.
nipples.
Yeah, they do look like nipple piercings, but there also isn't
Not.
there's also
Yeah.
not a nipple on it. Like if that makes it like it's just kind of like a bump, like a big bump. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thing, and he like walks over and like shows that to her, and then starts licking her face a bunch.
He's like, you want to see horror? I'll show you the horror.
And you know what? To be fair, I am more scared of this scene than the rest of this movie, because I would be a lot more scared if this happened to me.
Fair.
Good point. Fair point.
But then he just leaves. He's like, all right, I'm good. I scared the girl. Goodbye. What? That's okay.
I've got my scare juice.
Like, no more real reprimanding of,
Filmer?
like Vilmer. Like, it's just like, hey, stop. Whatever.
More hey, do better.
Yeah,
And hey,
be
stop
better.
better.
And he leaves. Vilmer.
See how easy that was, Vilmer?
Hmm?
You just see how easy that was, Vilmer?
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Also, I don't know where it happened, but we missed it. Oh, before the limo showed up, Vilmer did light Heather on fire. We forgot to mention that.
And then stomped on her.
Well, no, he stomps on her after they leave, which is why like they're two different parts. Yeah.
Okay.
So
because after he leaves, he
gets real mad. He walks over
mode.
and he like stomps on her head and basically finishes while doing it. Like his facial reactions are very climactic, if you will. As he crushes her head like a cockroach. Great joke that we gave at the wrong time. Well, we got good punchlines. We don't have the best delivery. That's the Horror Bois motto. So yeah, he crushes her head. Then he cuts his chest a bunch, as well as I believe his wrist one time, while Leatherface screams, because that's what Leatherface be doing. And then Jenny tries to escape, but Vilmer catches her, and Leatherface is about to saw her when she gets Vilmer's leg remote and messes with it. Vilmer then grabs another leg remote and kind of battles her. They get a little, like, movie 2, we got chainsaw fight. This movie we got remote control that controls leg fight. Jenny wins eventually, and she's able to run away while Leatherface starts to chase her with his chainsaw. Vilmer then yells his own name. It's like, Vilmer! It's great. And then he says to, get that bee. Go. Does he say go at the end or before? I think he's like, go! Like, it's so overacted, but I loved every second of it. It is so stupid. the way he yells his own name. At first, you're like, what is he saying? Oh, he's saying Vilmer. Got it. Okay, weirdo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he seems like he wanted to follow, like, before this scene, but he can't, because he's like, he can't get, like, the right... None of his remotes want to, like, power his leg, but then he finds the one that can, so he gets in his truck to help.
Yeah.
Then we meet Mr. and Mrs. Spottish, who pick her up in their RV.
Mr. Spottish.
With some of the worst ADR lines in the history of ADR. Which, if you don't know what ADR is, it's like where you record like sound afterwards because like you didn't pick it up initially. There is a moment where like she's opening the door, she's like, "There's a man with a chainsaw," but it is so obviously not filmed at the same time. Like she even turns around while she's not talking at all. Yeah, to be fair, I didn't fully notice it until I watched like once again, shout out to Dead Meat, their video on it. I was like, oh gosh, it's so bad. It is definitely up there with some of the worst ADR scenes I have ever seen. And they're in this RV. Also, they're drinking, while driving, so they kind of deserve whatever happens to them. Bold statement. Mr. and Mrs. Spottish, not the heroes of this movie. Sorry.
That's definitive.
It's definitive. I said it. But Leatherface is able to keep up with them because he's now in Vilmer's truck. He's kind of, chainsaw on the side of it, and the RV crashes. And Vilmer almost is able to catch Jenny because she gets out. Mr. and Mrs. Spottish, dead. Dead on impact. We never see them again. They're gone. Good riddance.
Yeah. The reckless endangerment of the abandoned
Maybe you shouldn't be
trail.
drinking and driving. There's laws about that. Show me the law where it says I can't chainsaw someone. It might not be there. There are ones about drinking and driving. He has the statement. Hey, it's Texas. You don't have to conceal carry your chainsaw. You can just carry that thing. We're down. We understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vilmer's about to catch her, but then a crop duster shows up and kills him.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
There's a really great theory I saw in the comments of the Dead Meat video that this is Grandpa driving it. He went off to do this. Credit to whatever commenter said that on their video. It, once again, 100% not me who came up with it, but it is hilarious. I think it's the top comment. Go to their kill count on the video if you want to know who exactly said it. But yeah.
What's funny is that it's more reasonable than what the movie implies, which is that this is an Illuminati assassination.
Yeah, maybe.
For failing to adequately scare real horror out of her.
And you know who is doing it? The Illuminati leader, Grandpa. The hero of this movie. The thing is, he actually kind of is the hero. Whoever the crop duster is actually the hero of this movie. Like, he saves her life. Like, the whole joke is the hero of this movie, but it's actually true here. And then Leatherface cries and screams a bunch. And then the limo shows up, but the Illuminati guy tells her she has nothing to worry about. Then we cut back outside of it as Leatherface does a chainsaw dance. And then we cut back inside, and the Illuminati guy, which is Mr. Rothman, tells her that he's sorry about this abomination she has faced and how it was supposed to be more of a spiritual experience. And then she's like, shut up, basically. And he's like, do you want to go to the cops or the hospital? And she's like, I guess she says the hospital because we show up at the hospital in the next scene.
Yeah.
Where there is a cop questioning her. And that cop is played by Grandpa from the first movie. It's fun.
Really?
Yeah, the guy who's in all the makeup in that movie is playing the cop here. And while she's being questioned, there is a patient being pushed by an attendant. That patient is played by the actress who played Sally Hardesty from the first movie. And she's being, like, the main character, the final girl.
Oh.
And she's being pushed by Franklin. The guy who's pushing her is Franklin. So they all, for some reason, decided to come back to this movie.
Okay. And we are meant to. I didn't recognize her.
Yeah.
It's clear that we're meant to.
I feel like you're
see that she's
supposed to
significant
recognize
somewhat,
her,
yeah.
but the other
Yeah.
two are also former cast members from the first movie.
Yeah.
She is, because there is definitely, like, yeah, as you mentioned, like, she's getting pushed, there is this moment where,
Zooms
like,
in.
for some reason,
They make eye
Jenny
contact,
recognizes her, and, like, she's staring at her, and the cop even goes, like, oh, do you know her? Like, so you definitely are supposed to know she's from something. And then we cut back to Leatherface, chainsaw dancing, and what the heck, why not? One last flashbulb sound effect as we transition into the credits.
Hey,
Why
it's over.
the heck not? So, final thoughts. I will say, going into these final thoughts, when I had watched the movie, I had a certain thought of what I was going to say. I was going to be like, the idea was it was going to be something of the nature of like, and I kind of said that as we started talking about this movie. I was like, I enjoyed parts of it as like being so bad it's good that I enjoyed it. And like some of the wildness was so wild that I just couldn't help but be like, what the crap am I watching? Like it was a bad movie that I enjoyed. But as I read these notes and I describe what happened, I hate this movie more and more. This movie has like reverse growing. Like it's like some movies, like when I re-talk about them, I go like, man, I think I like that movie more than I thought when I first watched it. This had the opposite effect. When I first watched it, I kind of had the mindset of like, it wasn't good. I know it was bad, but I kind of was like, I might even say I kind of enjoyed it. But the more I think about it, it's stupid. The in my opinion, the one saving grace for this movie is Matthew McConaughey. I do love every scene he is in, even though it's over the top and stupid. It makes me laugh. But overall, like, it's a nothing movie that is such a, like, I feel like insulting departure from anything we've seen in this franchise so far. Like, the first movie, it's a classic. I love it. The second movie is a huge tonal shift, weird horror comedy that I really enjoyed. The third movie is a movie that is a by-the-numbers slasher film that I like because I like by-the-numbers slasher films. But then there's this movie that is just like, what, the Illuminati's here? There's a hot girl with boobs who's part of the family now? What is going on, movie? Like, what are you doing? Yeah, I can't, like the last movie I said, I like it, can't explain why. This movie it's bad, and I explained why. Like, yeah. That's my thoughts, is just, yeah.
Yeah, this movie is very bizarre in a lot of ways. And definitely what feels like the furthest departure from a Texas Chainsaw movie that we've had yet, and hopefully that we ever will have. And that, our kind of main monster character, Leatherface, isn't really a focal point in this movie at all, so much as just like a character who is a part of the family and there at times. Not to say that Vilmer isn't like a captivating villain, but also like he's not who anyone showed up to see. Like,
I mean, in '94, you're right, but when they released this movie in '96, he was the reason people showed up, and that's why they got the movie in theaters. Sure. That's why people saw this. I know what you mean, though. It's not what they intend, right. But like technically, this movie was 100
didn't show up for Vilmer. They showed up for Matthew.
This movie was 100% marketed as "Please show up for Matthew McConaughey."
Yeah, and like the whole Illuminati side plot just feels so like out of nowhere. And all of the acting save for like Matthew McConaughey is just, if it's not like serviceable, it's awful. In a sense that almost feels like a parody movie level, but it doesn't feel as intentional as a parody movie does. And so overall, like the tone of this movie just is confusing. And I just feel like it doesn't really know what it wants to be. And I don't really know what it wants me to, like, feel about it. And also it does feel like it has some of these messages that it's trying to convey about, the male versus the female form, but also everything surrounding it so just utterly ridiculous that, like, how could you take it seriously? Uh, yeah. Uh, just a wild ride overall, uh, and a terrible one at that.
I can't argue with that assessment. This has a a bad story and bad acting, and I'm not sure that there's much left to say after that. Except it has to be emphasized that Leatherface is intolerable in this rendition. I would rather see any other version of Leatherface that we've seen, and I'm going to take a gamble and say my opinion on that will not change as long as the succeeding Leatherfaces do not scream at the top of their lungs for the rest of their movies that we'll review next. But yeah, I mean, I try not to be a nitpicker, but it's hard for me to find a redeeming quality in this movie. I mean, and the Illuminati side plot just blunders because it ultimately like the Illuminati are the good guys. Everything that like Mr. Illuminati Rothman comes in and does makes him he's like charitable and kind and everything. Yeah, he's got like funny nipple carvings and he licked a girl, but then he takes you to the hospital. You know, what more do you want? Like,
Mr. Rothman is the hero of this movie.
Oh no, the Illuminati's the good guys.
Yes. Anyway,
Uh,
I won't. I've already dwelt too much on the Illuminati and Leatherface because the main problem with this movie is that the acting is not good and the story is not good. So
Yeah.
really boils down to that.
Yeah. This movie was bad, and we will. This last two movies, and most of these last two movies, I'm not gonna, like we already said earlier, I can't fault two for this, but both 3 and 4 said, hey, those other movies, they don't matter. Only the first matters. Well, the next movie said, hey, we're a reboot. Nothing matters. So tune in next week for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, which is the remake. So we'll be watching that next week. If you like this podcast, please give it a 5-star review on, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, whatever podcast app you use. Tell a friend about it. If you want to help support us directly, head on over to patreon.com/horrorboys, and you can get a bunch of cool content that we'll start making for you if you pay enough. And if you don't, if you want to pay for just like one of the cheaper things, you can just get this podcast, early or, ad-free. There's a lot of things you could do. Ooh, crazy.
Ooh.
Crazy good deals over at patreon.com/horrorboys. The real moral of this podcast is that the hero of this movie is patreon.com/horrorboys. We can all agree on that.
True.
But yeah, I've been Austin, joined by Chris and Isaiah, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.